Let's have our guest join us. Right here in the studio is Mr. Ben Agunloye, who is a regular on the program and also a political affairs analyst. A very good morning to you, Mr.
Good
Ben.
morning.
Thank you so much for finding the time to join us this morning.
You're welcome.
Well, let's kick off with security matters. It's very unusual for us to, start off conversations with matters of security. It's usually either political or economic. But this time around, the president has sent a shocker stating that he is ready to open up the debate about state policing while also asking state governors to liaise with members of the National Assembly to ensure that they bring about state policing. What is your reaction to this?
Well, security issue has become more like the Hydra-headed monster,
Yeah.
and so we need to look at it in a more focused manner. The practical reality is the president is going around trying to attract investors,
Yeah.
but we all know it that no one will come and put his money in an environment where the security is not guaranteed.
That's correct.
And so basically, therefore, we need to tackle security at its roots. Now, talking about state police, of course, it's not the federal government in any way saying from time they don't want it. Those who possibly are opposed to it are looking at it from maybe some prisms. There are those who, for me, were looking at the fact that state police can be abused. But the abuse is, for me, not the real issue. The real issue is going to be funding. You cannot afford, we all know it, ask people who live in estates, when guards are employed, and then suddenly you stop paying them, you will realize that the security issues in the estate increases beyond what it was before these guards are employed.
Yes.
So if the states are struggling, we can afford teachers go on strike. We've had health sector going on strike. We've had judiciary go on strike, and the rest of that. Even the airports have been shut down. Now, when you take policing to be an affair of the state, and the state that cannot pay the regular civil servants, if you do the same to the police, not paying somebody that has arms and ammunition at his disposal, can be very dangerous. So we need to go through the lineage to say, look, yes, we want to solve security problem. Yes, we want state policing. How do we ensure that these policemen are paid at all time?
Well, you had raised a very important point about, most states not being able to pay, civil servants within the state. Recently, we saw that the governors of Imo State and the governors of the governor of Imo State and the governor of Ebonyi State all upped the minimum wage from the 70,000 naira set by the federal government to, I think, Ebonyi 90,000 naira and Imo about 100 and something thousand naira.
Yeah.
Now, these are governors that are doing well alongside other governors as well. But then there are some states that have not even started implementing the 70,000 naira minimum wage. And yet the president is saying governors of the 36 states liaise with the National Assembly on how to create state. In fact, the president is ready. It's no longer a matter of debate. It's now do it. These governors that are underperforming, even when it comes to the minimum wage now, are we expecting that they will also be part and parcel of the governors who are supposed to come up with that state policing creation and ensure that armed policemen who are now being paid by the state are not owed? Because we have seen scenarios where individuals who are supposed to be protectors of lives and property turn against the people.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's not just about passing the law. Yeah. For the president, he's been governor of his state. And you know that Lagos did a lot up till now in trying to fund the police.
The police, yeah.
They have a fund for that. the police in Lagos possibly have one or two, a number of helicopters purchased by the state, not by the federal government. So when you come to that, that's why I said the first thing that needs to be defined is how are we going to fund the state police? Until the funding is defined, because we all know what policing is. Let's go by that. The federal police is there. We know community policing tactics and the rest of that. Everybody knows about recruitment and the rest. But the practical reality is, how are we going to ensure that the police is going to be properly funded in the area of equipment, in the area of salaries, and of course in funding their operations? Because policing, in my opinion, is not cheap.
And of course these funds will still not come from the federal government. It has to be locally generated or internally generated by the states. Now, how about if you remember when the federal government had offered some sort of tax waivers for, you know, companies in the country, or you do a certain number of kilometers of roads and then certain taxes are waived off for you. Is that an option that can also be explored in this sort of situation? Taxing some of these companies, large, you know, companies within the country, to ensure that some funds are drawn out from there to service the state policing? Or are we still going to depend on the IGR? What exactly? It's established that there are some states that are richer than others in the country and are doing very well. But are these options viable on the table?
Well, like I said, different states will have different means to raise their funds. Because when you say tax companies, some states are practically civil service states.
No companies
so
at all.
Who do you tax in that situation? And that's why we said there must be a discussion on the table.
Do you have any viable solutions to this? Maybe options that you think these states can explore in generating these funds? You have raised a very important point. It's not just enough to create the structure. The structure. It's also about maintaining the structure and ensuring that we don't push these servicemen to the wall where they have no other choice than to turn on us.
Yeah, there is no state, given the platform in Nigeria, that should not be self-sustaining. Okay. So, and that's why some of us will think that, before you go into state policing, you've got to have honed in on the things that are available to you. I think over the week I saw somebody talking about fruit processing in Benue. I think it's the first time anybody is thinking in that state. Because from 1999, I've been waiting for a governor who campaign in Benue on what he would do with orange and mango that is available everywhere. There are other resources. A state like Gombe, I would always insist, can survive on onions alone if they choose to hone in on onion and the river fish. So the question therefore is that every state will need to sit down and define what process is available to them to emancipate their people and to generate revenue. And so you know that going forward, this is what you are protecting, this is what you are bringing in, and this is how you intend to sustain it. But if you are not going to generate activities that will sustain the process, then going that route will be a dangerous place to start. But on the surface, under the earth, and even in the people, every state in Nigeria has sufficient resources, human, natural, and mineral, to survive if they decide to wear their thinking cap and to do it.
Now it's also about understanding the different states and their strengths and capacity. If you take a look at a state like Lagos now, Lagos might not necessarily be a state that you would say has agricultural potential in that sense, but it has manufacturing potential, it has industrialization, almost more than any other state in the country. could there be room for collaboration? The man that you talked about from Benue, who had mentioned something about the governor, purchasing farm produce from farmers, and then some sort of collaboration between the Benue state government and the Lagos state government. The state government in Benue purchases these items from farmers within the state and sells it off to the Lagos state government. Now, this sort of collaboration, whereas Lagos has its own industries and all of that, Benue has the produce to sell to Lagos. Can there be some sort of synergy among states, maybe not even neighboring states, but states that produce something that another state needs, collaboration between the state governments to ensure that revenue is properly generated? I don't see that happening much, except for the case of Benue and Lagos.
No, we've had the Lake Rise before. That's the Lagos-Kebbi Alliance, where, of course, Kebbi grew rice for Lagos mills. Yes. But what we need to look at is, while we're talking about state alliance, especially states that are not contiguous by land, you also have to look at what are the means of transportation.
Yes.
Trucking has not been sufficiently effective. The roads are not good. So sometimes you take the items from a state like Gombe and it takes you a whole week to get to Lagos. Imagine that it were onion in sack. Yeah. You're going to lose so much. A lot of it will have been lost. So we need to also look at what are the infrastructures available. So you would decide to see that if the fruits in Benue, for instance, are processed in Benue and preserved in Benue, and then you have a means of moving them between Lagos and Port Harcourt, between Benue and Port Harcourt, between Benue and Lagos, between Benue and Abuja, and you will realize that it becomes easier. But when you don't have preservation and you don't have processing done at that place, the chances are that the post-harvest loss, because our post-harvest loss is in two categories. One is what happens on the farm because you couldn't even bring it out. The next is what happened while you are in transit. The vehicle break down the road is bad, there is flood, there is this, there is that, and these items are perishable because they have not been processed and because they have not been preserved. For instance, if you are going to have refrigerated trucks, then you know that if there is delay on the road, maybe the tomatoes will not decompose because they have been kept at a temperature that will make them good at the point of delivery. So we need to look through the value chain. And we need to look through our agricultural value chain
to create that synergy.
Yeah, so that synergy and the seamless collaboration.
And you think that can help with revenue generation to fund the state policing? Back to the matter now. Now, when it comes to the state policing in itself, yesterday I was having a conversation with a retired AIG, and one of the things he was talking about is community policing first, right? The understanding between the policemen in our communities and the community members themselves. There's been a breach of trust that needs to be fixed. Is this breach of trust also going to trickle down to the state police structure, or are we going to see a more trusted Nigeria police when it is now state policing, because of the fact that every state will now have its own indigents, will now have its own people policing it?
Well, theoretically, we will say that won't be there.
Okay.
But practically, I don't see the trust deficit disappearing, because the recruitment process will still be largely what you have as of today. Okay. There are only very few states in Nigeria that are homogeneous. Maybe you're talking of Bayelsa, maybe you're talking of Ekiti, 90% homogeneous, maybe you're talking about Anambra. But when you get to some other states, you actually realize that even when they speak like Adamawa, like Taraba, like Ondo, where I come from, you are going to see every community a new language.
That's right.
Every community has its own dialect. Maybe in the Akuko environment where I come from, where there are 49 communities and there are almost 49 autonomous languages. So how do you effectively manage the situation when you are localizing it, and then are you saying that okay, every DPO must come from the town where they are placed?
Which is not possible.
When we get to that, we will still have issues. So the issues of infrastructure we need to deal with. The issues of community policing we need to deal with. I don't know if it has changed, but some years back I was trying to look at community policing in Egypt, for instance. You realize that it is not the policeman who determines where they live. It is the government having built structures, because the government build the houses and then they allocate them.
Yeah.
And then in the process they reserve some for their use. And so a policeman is rightly accommodated within the community. So you are going to say this is a street. There is a system that has been defined. 5 or 10 flats in the street has been reserved, maybe for the use of the police and other security agencies that the masses may not even know that that's what they are. But the police would wear uniform. They possibly have their car allocated to them. Yeah. And so they can resume together, they can close together until you move them out of the area. Now the practical reality today is that you move police in Nigeria, we don't even have accommodation for them, whether as barrack or in the midst of the people.
So
they struggle, you have to sort yourself out.
Yeah.
And in that process, they can be exposed to things that are not worthy.
Is an adoption of that method or policy possible in Nigeria?
Well, it's going to be difficult because we don't determine where people live generally.
Yeah.
In those days, I think Abuja used to have government quarters, and so some policemen who came in early have places allocated to them, which could have been further developed. But today, I think all those properties have been sold. And so if the government does not control the estates and the building here and there, it's difficult to control allocation. It is what you build, it is what you own that you are able to allocate. And I notice that each time we talk about housing development, the managers of the nation are always thinking the UK, the US, or China. We need possibly to sit down and look at Egypt as a case study when it comes to housing development.
And emulate
Cairo is as big, Cairo is as populated, if not more populated, than Lagos.
Yeah.
Cairo has 2 states. There is Giza and there is Giza West. In that same town, it's 2 states. So it means if it were Nigeria, you have 2 governors in the same town. So but they've been able to manage the town
territory,
yes,
with two different governors.
But they've been able to manage a number of things and run it well. So perhaps we need to look at what are they doing, how are they policing their nation, and then what lesson can we learn in community policing from them. Because when you say community policing, it's not just about community, it's not just about association.
Yeah.
It is that these policemen live within us.
As part and parcel of
as part and parcel of the community.
Yeah.
And so information can get to them. There are things they know without being told. You know them, they know you. And so the relationship is built. And then from that point, it goes up in an organic structure, not a warrant situation.
But before we still take a look at security from another perspective, the comments of the Northern Elders Forum to the president, I just want to get your last take on this particular state policing matter. You had said that the concept of state policing is to ensure that the policemen live in the communities, the policemen are part of the community, and they don't even have to be given some certain information. They just naturally absolve themselves into whatever setting that they are in. But there is actually a huge question mark on that. How about the issue of over familiarity and compromise?
Well, that's why there are rules.
Yeah.
That's why there are laws. And that's what we are saying, that eventually you are still going to need, like I told you, in the Cairo situation, there are policemen that wear uniform. But there are other security people who don't wear uniform, who lives in the community.
Yeah.
So there is a balance. The policeman knows that somehow, somewhere, somebody is also watching him.
Yes.
Who he doesn't even know. It's easy to protect yourself against somebody who is watching you, that you know. But the practical reality is that you don't know who is who in the community. You just know yourself. So the guy can pretend to be an hunter, the guy can be a cobbler, the guy can be even a waste management person, but of course he reports to some other security sector. So before you get to the realm of compromise,
back in the day.
Yeah. So before you get to the level of compromising, you will actually notice that the report has gone up, and at the higher level, the needful had been done. You have been trained, you are a good policeman, but you think, compromise will begin to happen because you have been in this community for too long. Of course, you can be moved elsewhere.
Now, Mr. Ben, the Northern Elders Forum, alongside, of course, the Arewa Consultative Forum, is asking the president to declare a state of emergency in the entire northern part of the country to save the region. The Northeast is not safe. The Northwest is not safe. The North Central is also battling its own challenges. We saw DSS arraigning 9 suspects relating to the Benue and Plateau killings. Now, all of these are interconnected. Do you think it's a timely call? And do you think that maybe just the way a state of emergency was declared in the Northeast at the height of the Boko Haram insurgency, there is a need for a declaration of state of emergency on the entire northern region to curb insecurity?
When you declare state of emergency, you need to manage it. Do we have the resources and the boots on ground to manage that situation? I really don't think it's an issue of declaration. It's not an issue of declaration. For me, it is also not even an issue of what you call throwing money.
Yeah.
Most times when you declare state of emergency, it is an opportunity to throw money. It's an opportunity for more people to get contracts for supplies and the rest of that.
Yeah.
But we should be looking. I would have expected that anybody today will be calling on the president. You spoke about forest guards some months back.
Yeah.
When are we recruiting them? When are we training them? When are they taking effect? For me, the forest guard, the federal forest guard situation will alleviate our security challenges to a large extent. In fact, that if you do that and do that properly, whether it is now state managed or federal managed, you may actually not even need the state policing. If the forests are well managed.
But it appears
so
that
there are two things that you need to do in the farming area. Perhaps we need to begin to look beyond what we do now. What's wrong with mechanized farming? Because people say, if you bring in the machine, people will lose jobs. No. When you expand capacity, they may not be doing what they used to do before the way they used to do it, but they will have other things to do. Because every chain of activity creates something new. And so by the time you have the farm mechanized, you actually have lesser number of people for anybody to call himself bandit to come and collect tax from. And then because the farm is mechanized and is defined, you also can then decide to provide the security that is required to manage that environment. But where the farms are scattered and they are managed by individuals, you can go and stay on their different farms still with them. But if it's a massive land, you can then decide to say, okay, you want to use drone or whatever to police the environment, to know what is happening. You want to do an helicopter surveillance. But when you have the people scattered in 500 different places, the number of men and resources required to manage that situation becomes much higher. And I think that is the challenge. So rather than a declaration of state of emergency on education, declaration of state of emergency on this and that, it is not declaration. It is practical action. When are we putting the forest guard in place? What is going to be the relationship of the state and the federal? Where are we going to recruit these people? How are we going to train them? So if you engage the people in those local environments, or who are indigenous and are ready to live in the area, from the local government, from the state, from the contiguous land boundaries, then you will realize that the forest would actually become more safe. Now, when you reduce the ungoverned spaces, you would realize that the hibernating points and hiding places for criminals and bandits would have been greatly decimated.
I mean, the argument is mainly about the certain parts of the country where you'd find little or no government presence. Places like Yellowater, where there was an attack or series of attacks that even led to the president visiting Benue State. Now, the leader of the Tiv community in Benue came out to say that nothing has really changed in the community since the visit of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, that is in Benue. In Plateau State, there was a recent attack where about 300 people were displaced from a community. And we also got reports of about 30 houses being burnt to the ground. It appears as if almost every day, it's either Benue or Plateau. Benue or Plateau. In relation to the Yellowater attack, I had mentioned that the DSS is now prosecuting 9 individuals who, individuals who are sort of suspects in both Benue and Plateau. Yeah. Beyond these prosecutions, what are viable, practical ways, maybe non-kinetic measures, to ensure we bring an end to this scourge?
Well, like I said, it's simple.
Yeah.
When you say non-kinetic, I think for me it is more of semantics. If the forests are not safe, if the forests are not being controlled, right, then what you realize clearly and broadly is that people cannot move around. But if you put in the forest guard, like the president has proposed,
yes,
and I think that is what everybody should have worked upon. So whether it's in Benue or in Plateau or in Taraba, the forests are there. The land mass is there. Benue, for instance, is bigger than the entire southeast.
Yeah.
So if you are going to say, you want to police Benue,
it's too large.
In essence,
yeah,
as of today, I am not sure that, apart from the command structures, I am not sure that Benue has more policemen than Anambra. Meanwhile, Anambra is just the size of
one or two local government areas in Benue State. But why is this so? There is an error somewhere. Yeah. Where is the missing link? As a state as big as Benue, in the north central, having maybe half the number of policemen in a small Anambra State.
Well, you're possibly looking at the number of people, the number of businesses, and the number of personalities you needed to protect in those cases.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know that the North Central is bigger than the entire South.
Exactly.
Because Niger is almost as big as the Southwest. Benue is bigger. It's an expanse of land.
Yeah.
And that's why we are saying reduce the ungoverned spaces, manage the forest, bring in what you would call some measure of industrial presence. You don't have to take everything you produce in Benue and Niger and Kogi away from the state. You actually can do some processing within the state. That brings in more people. It brings in more security measures. It brings in more activities. Yeah. It improves the economy, and that leaves them with less number of people that can be poached or used by criminal elements. I think that is basic. So whereas the regular security forces will do their job, we need to keep the forest. we need to put our infrastructure in place. Some of these places, when you talk about attacks, there are even no functional telecommunication network. You are in Abuja, and in some part of Abuja, you are struggling to use your phone, you are struggling to access data. So when that happens in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Lagos, Kano, what do you expect in the villages?
Interesting.
So a whole lot of places, I think that there is that inappropriate infrastructure system. So we need to look at our infrastructure and ensure that we force these things to be, and that we speed up on those projects. When you open up the roads and you open up the environment, it becomes possible to do some form of road patrols.
Yes.
When you say, non-kinetic, how well has the non-kinetic saved us in the Northeast? Because
that is being ravaged by insurgency.
We've been talking about that since 2017.
2 decades.
From 2017, we've been talking about non-kinetic,
but the insurgency itself has been on since 2009.
Yeah. So, to a large extent, I think that rather than semantics and talking, let's put the practical things on the table. For security, we need more boots on ground. Whether you like it or not, drone or any technology will not solve the problem that we require people to solve. Technology is only a tool to aid the people. So in every situation, there is the people. Define the process before you talk about technology. Otherwise, you will just acquire it, build one big room and call it data center or command and control center, and then you go to the command and control center, the TVs are there on the screen, there is even nobody sitting there down. So whatever was happening in those places, even though it's on the screen, there is nobody sitting down to know that something was happening, and so no action is triggered.
Now, Mr. Ben, we have about 5 or 6 minutes to wrap up the conversation. Your last statement about the federal government or state governments not just talking but taking action. The Zamfara State Governor, Governor Dauda Lawal, who has since the inception of his administration been at loggerheads with his former boss and predecessor, the current Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawale, recently made a statement, and I just want you to react to that in a moment. Let's take a look at the New National Star to review the statements of the governor of Zamfara State. Now, Governor Bello Matawale says on insecurity, I know locations of all bandits leaders in Zamfara. While boasting to end insurgency within 2 months if given full control of security agencies. The governor is blaming poor control of security agencies for prolonged fight against insecurity. Now, away from the New National Star, let's take a look at yet another paper to get a verbatim comment from the governor. The Daily Trust newspaper, on the front page of the Daily Trust. I can end banditry in 2 months, says Zamfara governor. And he says, and I quote, I swear to Almighty Allah, whenever a bandit's leader is located within Zamfara State, or wherever a bandit's leader is located within Zamfara State, I know it, and if he goes out, I know it. With my mobile phone, I can show you where these bandits are today. End of quote. Talk again.
Yeah. If you know it,
you
don't need to tell the masses. Relate with the security apparatus on ground. He is still the chief security officer of the state.
But he says he doesn't have full control of security
forces. And there is
a
security council where the army, the air force, and everybody is represented. What has he been saying to the council? Now, you want to control people that are not funding? If their salary comes from elsewhere, right?
They should be controlled from where
they should be controlled from. Who pays the piper dictates the tune.
Yeah.
You go to Niger. I've been to Niger, I've been to Kaduna, and you see the government doing a lot with the hunters, with the vigilante group. Yes, they work hand in hand with the police and the other security forces, but there is a government presence, right? There is a government presence that these hunters knows that, look, the government has our back. The government has an assignment for us. So what is the structure available in Zamfara?
I just want you to react to the allegations that he has always laid on his former boss, Bello Matawale. It appeared as if immediately he assumed office, it was an immediate a free ticket for him to go about saying that the former governor was paying bandits, even though he has also paid bandits ransom, was paying bandits ransom and was also, treating these bandits and criminal elements with baby gloves. He has accused the current Minister of State for Defense of being involved in the insecurity in Zamfara State. Is that something that the federal government, Nigerians, and all stakeholders involved should take lightly?
Well, the governor before Matawale at some point said he's resigning his position as the chief security officer of the state. I remember that the governor before Matawale said that. So basically, there is issue in Zamfara. No doubt about that. But what we also need to do is, rather than spend effort, dissipating effort on talking and gathering press to make press statement, work with the system. Now, if you are at loggerhead with the Minister of State for Defense, it tells you that you have chosen not to trust the federal apparatus. But at the state level, what is he doing? The Southwest had Amotekun. They passed the bill. So where is his proposal? I can train my men and give them to you to use while I'm paying their salary. Train your own men.
And that is where state police comes
with your own structure. So if state police had not been legislated, who stops him from using the hunters? Who stopped him from using the vigilante group? Niger is doing that. Kaduna is doing that. So who and who is he working with? It's not just about talking. It's not just about laying accusation at people's doorstep. It is show us the practical actions that you have taken thus far. You know where the bandits are, but you also have the Air Force commander in the state attending Security Council meeting with you.
And even if you can't directly give him orders, you can give suggestions.
You can give him information. Then if they now refuse to act on the information, then you can now say, oh, I have provided daily information as to the location of the bandits to the security forces, but they have failed
to act on it.
And so for that reason, you are making your alternative arrangement. But just making statements. I keep saying it. Was he in Oyo when the governor said, we know they are in one forest close to us here? No, that statement is not for the public. That statement should go to people who can take action.
And not to incite fear.
Yeah, not to incite fear in anybody or to grandstand that we know them, we are in charge. You are not in charge of anything if they are still in the bush and they can take decision and they can collect tax from your people and they can kidnap people and collect ransom. You are not in charge. You are in charge when you know that you can neutralize them. You can make it impossible. You can paralyze their activity. You know where they are. What have you done to block their supply line? If they live in the bush, how are they getting money? How are they getting resources? How are they buying food? Because it's in most of those bushes in the north, you don't have food all the year round.
It has
you
to
have
be brought
food at some part. So food has to come in, logistics have to come in, materials have to come in. So if you know where they are, and then you have not been able to cut them off or work with the structures that is on ground, I think that he's, in my opinion, he's incompetency of his command.
Well, a fine place to leave the conversation, Mr. Ben Agunloye. Always fierce and fiery to have you here on the program. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having this conversation.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again next week.
Thank you.
Well, that has been Mr. Ben Agunloye, a public affairs analyst. Today it has been around insecurity in the country, with the decision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to give a thumbs up and a green light to the debate on state policing. And the president has tasked state governors to liaise with the National Assembly to bring about the realization of state policing. This is also on the side of the Northern Elders Forum asking for a state of emergency to be declared in the northern region to ensure an end to the bedeviling state of insecurity.